Hello, my name is Ali and I'm a youth worker and an artist. By day I create educational experiences for young people, teenagers especially, and I've worked on a variety of topics. I've created projects on game design, animation, electronics, all of them for total beginners. And on the non-technical side I've done little experiments on emotional awareness, identity, as well as a youth exchange all about social inclusion and minorities.
And by night, my raw creative energies take over, and long into the midnight you'll find me creating paintings, games that no one quite understands, strange artificial intelligence, and poetry.
So raise your glass, let's all just have a drink as I bleed for you not blood, but thinnest, blackest ink.
I've been called the mad scientist far too many times for it to be a coincidence.
Anyway, what I've decided to do is to basically pretend that I'm in the middle of one of my projects, since mostly I did sort of 10-day, 12-day projects about something. And I thought it would be interesting to take game design as my topic, even though I know Grow does more non-technical topics, and I've done those as well. Game design is near and dear to my heart. It's probably the most complicated things I've ever trained on, and it's quite fresh in my memory, so enjoy. Okay, let's make sure everyone has time, that no one's late. Okay, take your seats everyone. Okay, we can start. Good morning, welcome to day 4 of our project. So far, quick recap. For the first 2 days we've had team building exercises, we've had bonding, we've had games, we created a buddy system where you're paired with someone else in the group to share your learning outcomes with. And today, before we get into the topic, who was on intro duty today to make an activity? Natalie, right? Yeah.
It's something really short and low energy, as you asked. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, I got your note about the suggestion. So everyone, Natalie suggested that we do a short one where we say our favorite part about this project and also something we've learned about our body in these first 2 days. So Natalie, would you like to start?
Awesome! My favorite part were the social bonding games in the first 2 days, and I learned that my buddy, Baron Babyhands, loves chess and poetry.
Very nice. Okay, Baron, what about your partner?
My partner, Natalie, comes from the Netherlands and she is very into trains.
I'm surprised you remember that.
It's quite surprising how much one can be into trains, actually. And my favorite part was when we made our first game yesterday, where I defeat my envious, simpleton rivals with my poetry.
Cool. Well, my buddy seems to be running late, but I've learned about him that he experiences 2 dimensions of time at the same time. I'm still trying to understand that. And my favorite part so far is seeing what you guys came up with, and it's what I look forward to in the future when we make a game in the game competition. I haven't revealed the topic yet, but have patience. So, one day at a time. Before we begin with today's topic, let's recap how our game works at a basic level so we have a good starting point.
Now, the game we made is quite simple, and I'll walk through it to understand the core of our game. By pressing the arrow keys, the main character moves, and by clicking, a projectile is created, and it's launched towards the mouse cursor. Every second, enemies spawn outside of the screen, and they always go towards the main character. If an enemy touches one of the projectiles, both of them are deleted and the smoke animation is played. And lastly, if an enemy touches the main character, both of them are deleted and the lose text is shown, so you have a lose state for your game.
So that's where we are right now. So what we're gonna do is...
I have arrived, mortals.
Well, 5D, you're late.
I do not experience time the way you do. I have been late, early and punctual in 100 versions of today.
Well, it's still disrespectful towards those with a normal amount of dimensions. Not to mention...
How dare you assert what is a normal amount of dimensions? You time-bound creatures always make such a big
Okay.
deal of things.
Unbelievable.
Guys.
Stop
Well,
playing.
never.
Guys, okay. There's several things we need to address. First of all, Baron Babyhands, address the issue, not the person. There's no such thing as a normal or abnormal amount of dimensions to have. We try not to use that word, okay?
Yes,
Second of all,
indeed.
Shining One, my temporal buddy. The rules apply to everyone, including me, including you. Sessions don't work properly if we don't abide to the rules, okay?
We understand.
And lastly, Natalie, thank you for getting things back on track, but we prefer to use the microphone rule for that.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It's okay. Everyone, remember, when you want silence and focus to come back, you just raise your hand silently and encourage everyone to do so, and then we can continue.
Well, you're the trainer.
Okay. Awesome. Now, we got here, we made our first game, but there's something we need to talk about. Our game isn't the best game in the world.
Preposterous!
I know,
Impossible.
but it has a bunch of problems. Now, to improve, we have to be harsh critics of our game. Okay, so let's think about what our game feels like to play. Any suggestions?
Ouch. The zombie cats in our game are lucky to be given a quick death at the hands of your meow meow projectiles. All who ever play our reverse meowing disaster would be wise to never return.
'Tis true. They're rather boring. I wouldn't replay them myself. Plus, our games are supposed to be about different things, but they all feel the same.
Very good. Our games are supposed to be about different things, but they just kind of feel the same. They don't get their point across, so the mechanics don't tell a story. And this applies to board games as well. There's board games that say they're about something, but they just don't feel like it. Yeah, so this is a good start. So far, this is about our player. But it's important what we feel as creators as well. Our mood and time is a valuable resource. And so you might feel like you don't have any ideas. You have like, if I told you now, make a game, finish this game, you would be like, I don't know, I don't feel creative. So that's a problem. And a good way to get creative ideas, just like in every other art form, is to seek inspiration from what other people create. But in games it's a bit different. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to understand and add twists and little thought experiments. Like, for example, in chess, what if you could move twice instead of once? What if in a game they have a certain power level and you defeat monsters? What if instead of getting stronger when you beat an enemy, you get weaker? What would that change?
What if in football they had several balls on the field instead of one?
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of thing is going to get us flowing with ideas. We're going to know how to implement a million different things, and we're going to want to. We're going to want to add pets and a combo system and multiplayer and a lot of million other things. And oh my god, where do you even start?
Infinite possibilities open before me. I shall add everything.
You stop having the problem of too few ideas, you start having too many ideas, and that can be even worse. So you get overwhelmed. And you know what? Let's say you do become a master programmer or a master board game designer. You make a game with 1,000 different features. Well, what about the player? They're not going to be bored, or are they? They might get burned out. They may get confused about what your game is even about. They might have like 6 different games in one that don't come together. And that's another problem. And that's when we need to zoom out, get out of our laptops, out of our notebooks, out of our prototypes, stop being game developers for once, and start being game designers. Now, can anyone tell me just intuitively what they think game design means? Yeah, Natalie.
To me, game design is thinking about how to create a game, thinking about how to make a story, also some sort of mechanics, how to make story to work with those mechanics.
Yeah, so that's actually quite fair. So does anyone else have any input? Yeah, 5D.
Game design is about programming a video game, the commands and resources that make it up, right?
Okay, not bad, but that only applies to video games. So what we're having is this idea that it's about the player actions and player experience. And it's true. There's one more thing we need to think about. How do those actions happen in any game? In catch, in hide and seek, in Mafia, in a drinking game. How do those actions happen?
They happen one after another, and again and again. Oh, they're in a loop.
Exactly, Baron Baby Hands. You're spot on. So game design is the field of finding and creating patterns in an interactive experience. Because that's what a game is, right? A game is an interactive experience that changes according to the player. And game design is about how do I best create this and translate it into the mind of the player the way I want to. Or how do I create something meaningful? And the core
of game design, because it's a really deep field. Like the depths of it look like philosophy. You get into psychology, ecology if you're making the right kind of game. But the most important bit in game design is something called a gameplay loop. Let's take our first game, a game called Never Have I Ever. I know we've all played it because we've played it yesterday with lemonade, because drinking on the project is strictly forbidden.
I have never seen alcohol in my entire life.
But it's a simple party game where someone says something that they've done or not, and everyone who's done it drinks. That is the core loop of the game. Story, drink or not, pass the turn. Now, what makes that game so good? What makes it so good at creating a bonding experience? What makes it a well-designed game? Because you might not think of a party game as design, but someone made this. So, the core loop actually supports itself. If you play with alcohol, which we do not, the more you confess to things, the more you drink. The more you drink, the more you confess to things. And it's a core loop that drives itself. So let's write that down. Now, not only that, but there's different kinds of players that emerge over the course of a game. There's that person who's going to brag about their crazy stories and expect anyone else to do them, but really they're just bragging. There's going to be that person that's kind of shy and not participating, but then they open up. There's going to be those people that make it about other topics, and you always know who they are. And so that's called player types. It creates player types. Next, we'll study a much beloved game called Minecraft, which I'm sure almost all of us have played here. Here's the trick question. What do you mostly do in Minecraft?
You mine and you craft, obviously.
Okay, and how do those things influence each other?
The more you mine, the more you can craft. The more you craft, the faster you can mine. It is an eternal parade of mining and crafting. There is no escape.
Exactly. There's multiple core loops in Minecraft, and you can mine, you can look for resources, you can build things, you can just craft stuff, you can make systems in your game, but they all help each other. The more resources you gather, the more you can build and craft powerful tools. Those tools help you gather more. The systems that you can make with your resources, they can help you build. It all meshes together, and it's a really elegant game. And this is important because Minecraft has a lot of small loops, right? The moment-to-moment loop is like you're hitting one thing, you're taking a block. These are the loops that last only a few seconds, right? Like this loop is a tiny one that powers bigger ones. Your game is supposed to be this clockwork of moving parts. And the small loops in Minecraft they're fine, they're not super interesting. Like the combat isn't amazing, and like mining blocks gets old after a while. But if you want to set a goal for yourself, there's like a big loop that you decide. I want to build a statue of myself made of gold, and I want lava pouring from the eyes. And you're gonna go through this small loop of breaking blocks and looking for resources and finding things a million times because you want to achieve that goal. So that's our first hint. Short-term loops are the fun of the game, the moment-to-moment engagement, while the bigger loops are what get your players to come back. So let's actually write that down. And I mentioned player types. The more a player gets to play a game their own way, the more they feel like they own the experience and they form an identity in that game. Like, for example, Baron, when you play with friends, when you play Minecraft, what do you mostly do?
I fight vicious beasts of the night.
Okay, and what about you, 5D? What do you like to do in Minecraft?
I create elegant, efficient machines to feed and enlighten my simple, unwashed mortal friends.
Yeah, exactly. Me too, by the way. So if a player owns your experience, if the large loops change according to who they are, then you've got them hooked, right? And lastly, we're going to look at strategy games. We're going to be thinking about chess, but also strategy games like Age of Empires, other board games, Settlers of Catan, anything that requires you to start from scratch, build a strategy, and win. Now, Baron, tell me how a beginner plays versus how a master plays in chess.
Ha! A beginner barely fumbles through the basic moves of the game, while a master already has several openings memorized and knows how to counter strategies.
Exactly. And actually, the simplest example of this is tic-tac-toe. You know, three crosses in a row and you win. You should watch kids play it. And it's going to be very different than how you play it. They're actually going to be looking for the best move, while we know that there is a way to guarantee the outcome. That is something important. Player mastery. If a player can become better and better at your game, again, they're going to own the experience. They're going to come back to it. So a game that rewards you for learning its systems, for understanding the loops. For example, I talked about feedback loops in Never Have Ever. You know, the drunker you get, the more stories you share. This applies to chess as well, right? The more pieces you lose, the more likely you are to lose because you have less to work with. And there's a million other things to study about game loops and game design. For example, why does boss music play before a boss? Like, it's so you anticipate what happens in a big loop. Why do games have levels instead of just one big level? It's to give you a break from, you know, all the challenges, to give you a breather. Your mind goes into a different space, and then you go back. You don't get used to it. There's a lot to talk about, but I think we should recap a bit. So, you need a good chord loop that feels satisfying. Either the animations are good, or you know you're doing something enjoyable. Those chord loops should reinforce each other. If you have more of them, you know, mining helps you craft, crafting helps you mine, killing helps you level up, which helps you kill, anything like that. Or in a story game, the more you discover about the story, the more you want to discover about the story, right? It's less and less of a mystery, and you've got to solve it. These chord loops have to power bigger loops. So, as I said, leveling helps you change the game. The more the game changes, the more replayable it is over time. Even if the game itself doesn't change, you becoming a better player, depending on how much you've played, or a different player, depending on your choices. You know, it doesn't have to be big. It can be, do you want a sword? Do you want a bow? Do you want a magic staff? You know, that's the classic. Player classes, strategies. You know, what kind of openings do you like in chess? Do you like to be aggressive, more defensive? Experimentation helps keep a game replayable. So that's all about the players, right? What about us? You know, what about us? If we're not creative, studying games like this helps. You look at what makes a game tick, what makes it such an elegant clockwork, and you change the focus in it. So let's say strategy games where you send your people out to gather resources and they come back to your base. What if you made that the entire focus of your game? Because you don't think about it. What if you made a game just about efficiently collecting resources, and you have to manage the actual workers, where they go, how they defend themselves, or, as I said, do thought experiments. You know, what if chess had two moves? What if there was an adventure game where you're like a big barbarian with an axe and you're all cool, but you cannot kill anyone? You know, maybe there's a curse on you that you can't kill, so you become this, you know, peaceful adventurer. Explore things by doing little thought experiments, and to keep your game from getting, you know, overwhelming to the player or to you, you know, like, oh, what could I add? Just think about your core or your cores, you know, and add nothing that doesn't support it. If you're making a space game, add a bunch of cool ways for spaceships to fly around, for them to discover. Don't add a million tree types or pets, or who knows what else you're going to think about. Have your game have a point. Ask yourself always, what is my game about? If it's about understanding existentialism or it's about killing goblins, it doesn't matter. You need to have a point, and anything you add, you should look at the rest of your game like, oh, does this help my game? If it doesn't, throw it out. We're going to do a game jam in like 4 days. You're not going to have time to do a lot of nonsense. You're not going to know how, and that's fine. If you're a good designer, he can help you be a good developer. And that was my pretend session. Hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I'll hear from you soon. Let's get revamping.